No, that's not what I want to hear. So, what have we been talking about recently?
How many versus how much?
Right. So can you tell me, let's see, when do I use how many?
How many like you can count?
Mm-hmm.
And how much means you can't count?
Good job. So today we're going to look at talking about big numbers, because has your mom ever said to you, I've told you 1,000,000 times?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard that? I've told you. We've done this 1,000,000 times. You know how to do that. So what we're going to look at today is some of those big numbers. Do you guys know what 1,000,000 looks like? Have you ever seen
Like
it?
a 1 and then a 0.
Do you want to try to write 1,000,000?
Like in word form.
In numbers. Do you want to try to write the number of 1,000,000?
Yeah.
Do you know what 1,000,000 looks like? Good job. So 1,000,000 has 6 zeros after it. And if we have a trillion or a billion, it just keeps getting bigger. So what we're going to talk about today, we'll kind of connect it to how many and how much. But we're going to talk about using 1,000,000 if I really mean I've told you 1,000,000 times, which if I've told you something 1,000,000 times, I've been telling you for way too long. But we've talked about how there's 7 billion people in the world, or McDonald's has their sign about they've sold 99 billion hamburgers, or whatever it is that they say. So we'll talk about using big numbers and using big numbers for seriousness or for silliness. So do you know what exaggeration is? Have you ever heard the word exaggeration? Exaggeration is stretching something to make an impact. So if I say I've told you 1,000,000 times, I'm trying to make an impact on you. I'm like, I've told you this so many times, how come you don't remember? Does that make sense? That's exaggeration. So what we're going to do today is we're going to read this book together, and we're going to talk about identifying serious
You can see that's not 1,000,000.
versus
Trillion.
silly. Do you know what a trillion looks like?
No.
So I'm going to, 1,000,000, what Amelia wrote for us, that's 1,000,000.
But trillion bigger.
That's a billion.
That's like 3
Trillion.
That's a billion, or that's a trillion. So 1,000,000, a billion, a trillion. How many zeros are up there? Do you know?
12.
12 zeros. Is that what you got, Angel? There's 12 zeros there. So we're going to talk about how much is a trillion and how we can tell if
A lot more.
a number is serious or silly. So open your book.
They all 100.
Yes, you're all on. So actually, we'll look at this, the picture right here has a picture of the McDonald's sign. It says billions and billions served. Now, apparently, McDonald's used to have a number on there, but now they just say billions and billions because they made so many hamburgers over the years.
Lots of people back.
Well, remember how we talked about how there's 7 billion people in the world? So,
Well, it's not all of them doing
no. I don't think anyone has a picture of all 7 billion people. I don't think we even have a picture of everyone in America. So we're gonna look at page 3. So, page 3. So looking at the table of contents, Angel, tell me something we're gonna talk about as we read this story.
A mini penny.
Mm-hmm. What's something else we're gonna talk about, Amelia? What's something besides a million pennies? What's something you see that we're gonna talk about?
Ready or not, here I come.
Yep. So we're gonna find it, learn some things about big numbers and try to use them.
One before.
You wanna read first? Go for it, buddy.
What's the biggest number you can think of? 100, 1,000, 10,000. We use special words such as many, million, and trillion to talk about really big numbers. But what do these words mean? And what do a million, a billion, and a trillion look like?
Have you ever played the game of hide and seek? In the hide and seek, one person counts up to a number while everyone else hides. But some numbers are so big that you couldn't count up to them in your whole lifetime.
So what number do you guys usually count to if you're playing hide and seek? What number do people usually count to? Do you have any ideas?
15.
Fif-
Yeah,
How high do you count for hide and seek?
30, 40, or 20.
Okay, so, but we're staying under 100. Now, do you think we could ever count to 1 million?
No.
No, they'll probably take a whole day.
At least. So, let's look at page 6. Angel, do you want to read? I don't know. And honestly, I don't want to find out because that would take up all that time. Go ahead, buddy.
We write 1 million as a 1 followed by 6 zeros. Like this.
You just say that it's 1 million.
1 million. Do you know how much a million is? Some of the world's largest cities have millions of people living in them. If you are lucky, you might win $1 million in a
Lottery. Do you know what the lottery is? Have you ever seen they have signs on the side of the freeway that say, like, Super Jackpot Wednesday, $290 million or something like that? Have you ever seen those? It's a thing where people buy a ticket. You can get them like at the grocery store or at the gas station, and if there are numbers on your ticket, and if they pull your numbers, or I'm not exactly sure how it works.
People random numbers.
Yeah, and if they get your random numbers, you get that amount of money.
Some we go on the mall and some you win money in a new car.
Yeah, so that could be a lottery or a raffle. So if you look at the chart on the bottom of page 6, you're going to see there are 10 cities listed there. Mumbai in India, Shanghai, China, Karachi, Pakistan, Delhi in India, Istanbul in Turkey, Sao Paulo in Brazil, Moscow in Russia, Seoul in South Korea, Beijing in China, and Mexico City in Mexico. And those are the 10 biggest.
Mexico City is in Mexico?
Yeah, Mexico City is the capital of Mexico.
Oh, one of the posting like 1 million people.
Mm-hmm. So if you guys want to count how many people are in Mexico, you can each person.
I'm the newer Mexico.
What?
The newer Mexico.
New Mexico is a state. It's just north of Mexico, the country. But
9 million.
So there are 9 million people in Mexico City.
I know the ban in China, 10 million.
Mm-hmm. So if you looked at that, we're gonna keep going, but you could sit there and look at that later and see how many people live in all of those cities. One time, I went to a city that had 3 million people in it, and I thought that was big.
Wait, does this mean like 1 million each person?
Yes, each little person's 1 million. So
China has 13 million people.
just in the city of Shanghai. So see, this is the city Shanghai. That's just how many people are in Shanghai, or that's how many people are in Mumbai. Does that make sense?
So 14 million.
Mm-hmm. Just in
The
one
top one
city.
have 14 million.
Yeah. It's the biggest city in the world. I have a friend actually who is living in Mumbai this summer for work.
Turkey and Brazil are the same.
So, and that's not even all of Turkey or all of Brazil. That's
These
just
three
those
is
two
the same.
cities. What three
wait,
cities are
that's
those?
4. China,
China,
and
South.
Pakistan?
Yeah, Pakistan.
These are the same. 10 million with you.
Yeah. So that's a lot of people in one city. Now, we're going to keep reading, but keep that idea in mind. There's a lot of people in those cities. We're going to get to some even bigger numbers as we keep going. Go ahead.
Maybe you think your parents have told you to clean your room 1 million times, but you
Yeah.
have they really say that every day your parents tell you 10 times to clean your room, you would be over 273 years old before they told you for the millionth time.
So your parents haven't told you 1 million times, but because none of us are planning to live to be 273, are
You
we?
would die.
Right. None of us will live that long. Alright, let's keep going.
Parents would be dead.
Yeah, you should probably just clean your room before your parents die. It's easier that way.
And many and
Imagine.
imagine a jar with 1,000 pennies in it. How now?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine 1,000 jar each with 1,000 pennies inside. That's a million.
Can you imagine seeing that? 1,000 jars with 1,000 pennies
No.
inside? Is that crazy? Alright, keep going.
But you know what? I don't want to come to 1 million because you have to go up to like 100,000
Mm-hmm. And then you have to keep going.
and then to 999,000
990. Yeah.
and then you need one more.
Mm-hmm.
Get 1 million.
Let's not count that high. Go ahead.
Remember your
Earlier.
game of hide and seek? Let's say you count to 1 million while your friends run and hide. You will count for over 3 weeks, thus stopping before you reach 1 million. Your friends will probably be very well hidden by then.
So there you go. That's the answer to how long it would take us to count to 1 million. It would take us over 3 weeks.
What if it takes you faster?
I don't know. But this is what this book is saying, is that it's gonna take us 3 weeks to count to 1 million. So I'm gonna trust that. Mm-hmm. So So, we've talked about a million, now we're gonna talk about a billion.
How much is a billion? We write 1 billion as a 1 followed by 9 zeros. Like this, 1 billion. There are more than 7 billion people live on Earth right now. More than 1 billion of them are under the age of 10 years old. That's a lot of kids.
So how many kids are there on Earth under the age of 10?
Million?
1 million.
1 billion. And does
I
that
mean,
include,
1 billion.
does that include you too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't know that.
so
Is it a billion?
governments keep track of how many kids are born each year and how many people die each year.
They would get more kids because they would get babies and get more kids.
Mm-hmm.
Every day someone dies.
But every day someone is born.
I heard that.
You're right. Keep going, babe.
But how much is a billion? Image I gave you a million was every day at the rate. It would take almost 2 years and 9 months before you had 1 billion.
So think about that. Remember we talked about if I had 1 million pennies, I would have 1,000 jars with 1,000 pennies in each one, right? So if I gave you $1 million every day, it would take me almost 3 years before I given you $1 billion. That's a lot. So $1 billion is a big number, right? So that's, if you look, if you go back a page to page 11, Amelia, that picture is actually $1 billion in cash. Like that's what $1 billion would actually look like.
So 10,000 each
10.
bundle.
20.
So do you remember we were talking about like when we say how much, we're talking about things we can't count? Because how much is $1 billion? Other than saying $1 billion is $1 billion is a lot, right?
Wait, is there a number called 100, 100?
No. If I write like just that, that's just like 100, that would be $1 million.
So that's a trillion.
$1 billion. Because this is a trillion with all 12 zeros. I'll help you figure that one out another day. Let's go on to page 12.
That's $1 billion.
That picture you looked at.
It
Yeah.
took me a long time, but I found you. How long do you think it will take to count to a billion during a game of hide and seek? If you count that high, your name will last about 100 years. And that's if you didn't stop to sleep, eat, drink, or do anything else while you count. Okay, they count old.
Yeah. Because you would be, so if you started counting to $1 billion today, you would be 108 by the time you were done.
You die.
Probably.
Probably. So if it would take you 3 weeks to count to $1 million, it would take you 100 years to count to $1 billion.
Dang.
That's why we don't count that high. We just do the math that gets us to those big numbers, if it's addition or whatever it is that we need to do to get those big numbers. So, remember the jar of 1,000 pennies? We're gonna come back to it. Go ahead.
What do you do? I did this.
It's $1 billion pennies?
Mm-hmm.
That's like a trailer thing.
It's like a school bus. You wanna read about it?
Yeah, remember the jar of 1,000 pennies
you guys have been on a bus when you've gone on a field trip.
And 1,000 pennies look like a bus.
Mm-hmm. So,
Like, you don't see this. These like walls.
yeah, they look like walls made of those pennies so tightly packed together. Alright, can you read page 14 for me, Angel?
That's 1 trillion.
How much is a trillion? A billion is a big number, but a trillion is much larger. 1,000 times larger to be
Exact.
exactly like one trillion as a 1 followed by 12 zeros like this. 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 0. But what does a trillion look like? Imagine that you set up 1 trillion penny in the shape of a cube. Each side of the cube would be almost as large as a football field.
Mm-hmm. Alright, can you read the last page for us?
People who work in scientists, business, or the government often use numbers in their work to measure.
Scientist, right?
A scientist might use big numbers to measure the
Distance.
distance from the Earth to the Sun. The business person might use to count how many
Products.
products a company has sold. A city planner might use to decide how many schools a city with millions of needs.
So, for example, we could count how many fidget spinners have been sold, or how many cars have been sold. What?
There's probably something like 1 billion.
Probably at this rate. Alright, Angel, I know I said that was the last page, but this is the actual last page. Can you read us the last page?
Knowing about millions, billions, and trillions to help us understand our words and our
Universe.
rules. So don't be afraid of really big numbers and the words we use for them. But numbers have a million
Uses. So I want you guys to look at that last page right there. And there's something I want to point out that they do right there. So
That's how much a million pennies are.
So what it
Oh.
says is we live in a galaxy, the Milky Way, and if you had 10 galaxies like ours, you would have 1 trillion stars. So Angel read a word on page 14, this word exact. Do you guys know what that word means? Have you ever heard that word before? So if something is exact, we know what it is. Like I can say there are exactly 4 people in this room. So something,
1, 2, 3, 4.
right, something, no. Like I know exactly where the school is. I know the exact place where I lost my phone. Things like that. Does that make sense?
If your phone got taken.
Well, then I wouldn't know the exact place where my phone was. Does that make sense?
That's why you should keep it.
Don't worry about the phone. It was just an example. So if we know something exactly, we can give an exact number. And that's when we're going to say million and we're not gonna put an S at the end. Or 7 billion. So if there's no S at the end, we mean it exact. We're being specific. It's clear. We've counted it. Remember? So that would be how. Would it be how much or how many?
How much?
Is how much
How
go?
many?
Oh, many. Because how much, remember, was for what we couldn't count. How many? Now, sometimes people will say, there are billions of people. Now, is this exact? Do we know this for sure?
Yeah.
Well, we know that there are exactly 7.1 billion people. Am I being exact here? Have I counted? No, I'm just kind of throwing it out there. So this is not necessarily uncountable, but not counted. So here there's no S, here there's an S. So we're going to start, I don't know.
I've been living for 2,000 something days.
You have, I don't know exactly how long you've been alive. I haven't
But
done
there's
it for that.
the math on the computer,
Okay.
and it was like 2,500.
So we're gonna look at this worksheet, and we're going to start this. We probably won't finish this today. Now, in the first sentence, the example. So what we're gonna do with this is we have to pick the correct form of the number world. So for example, the number 1 says, how old would I be in 500 or 500s years? Now, is 500, is that gonna be something that we can count?
Yes,
So is that gonna be 500 or 500s?
500.
Right, so if you look at the example, they did that one for you, 500 years. Now, let's look at the second one. Are there trillion or trillions of fish in the sea? Which one do you think is right?
Trillions.
Trillions. Why do you think trillions, Amelia?
Because I think there's more than a trillion fish.
Do you think that I'm being specific? Do you think I'm being exact when I say this, ask this question?
No.
I'm not, you're right. So circle the correct answer, because we're gonna say, are there trillions of fish in the sea?
I'll just say trillions.
You're right. We'll just say, there are trillions of fish. I don't know, I haven't counted. So, does this make sense? Now,
How long would it take to count to?
is that gonna be million or
They
millions?
spelled it wrong.
Did they?
Like instead of they should pick that too.
Well, how long would it take to count to 2 million? That sentence has 2 different words that sound exactly the same but have different meanings. 2 homonyms. So it's right. So how is it gonna be 2 million or 2 millions?
Take to count to.
It's gonna be 2 million.
More than 7
Oh,
billion.
we're gonna stop there for today. Do you guys both agree that it's 2 million? Does this make sense?
Yes.
Alright, we're gonna talk about this a little bit more next week, but next week we're gonna start doing some end of the year stuff. So we'll come back to
There's
this.
2 more questions.
Well, and we'll finish it next week, but we are out of time for today, okay?